This Integrity in Our Common Mission is the document that the Australian bishops put together and released last November, and it's basically a combining of a couple of documents. Excellent, fantastic.
Just before you can proceed, Father, can everyone on the screen, can everyone see that, the shared screen? Everyone online, I mean. The full screen? Can everyone... What can everyone see?
Well, at this stage, the screen's far too small, so I can't make it larger for some reason.
But what is on the screen at present?
Well, I can see Father Kerin to the left, and then the stand with the two, I see the screen, not large enough to read.
But can... Hang on.
That's my adjustment, I suppose.
Hang on a second.
I'd have to put it on speaker view, perhaps.
Wait a second. Can everyone see the screen now? There's a slideshow. There should be a slideshow on the screen. Can everyone see the slideshow, the slide title?
No, I can't see it, but
I should be able to.
the adjustment I've got, obviously I haven't got the adjustment right. Remember,
Oh, look,
anyway,
we'll have to proceed.
I'll have to go ahead, I think.
We'll have to proceed. Hang on a second. Okay, Father.
Okay. The first document was Integrity in Ministry, which was the code of conduct, if you like, for clergy in the Australian Church. And the second one was a document that was designed for lay personnel working for the Church. The Royal Commission suggested that there be one code of conduct for clergy and lay throughout the Australian Church, and this is the document that's brought that together. But today I'm just going to give you an overview of what's in it and how it might be useful and helpful. And the reason I mention that is because this is a Bren gun. Piston barrel buck buddy bipod is something I learnt when I was 15 years of age. Piston barrel buck body bipod is the assembly order for the Bren gun. At 15 years of age, they taught us how to assemble the Bren gun and to disassemble it. And I can still remember that. That was when I was 15. I have never, ever, ever had to assemble or disassemble a Bren gun since. Okay, but I can still remember it because it was second nature to me. Okay? Second nature means that it just comes naturally. It's so imbued in your lifestyle that you understand. Even if you never have to use it, it's there. And so the recommendation of the Royal Commission was that the Australian Bishops' Conference and Catholic Religious Australia, who look after the parts of the church, religious orders that are not controlled by the Catholic Bishops' Conference, develop and implement a national standard for all people in the church. So to undertake mandatory regular professional development, compulsory components being professional responsibility and boundaries, ethics in ministry, child safety, and to undertake professional and pastoral supervision, and to undergo regular performance appraisals. So that's everyone in the church. That's not just the bishops, it's not just the priests or the deacons, it's everybody in the church. The second recommendation they made was that it apply to all people in religious ministry and to lay people as well. The recommendation was that all people in religious ministry, leaders, members, boards, councils, governing bodies, employees, relevant contractors, volunteers, undergo initial and periodic training on the code of conduct. So this training today serves as the knights doing just that. So we need to know what kinds of allegations or complaints could be made, who are they reported to, how are they reported, recognising physical and behavioural indicators of child sex abuse where it might be present, and taking all complaints seriously, regardless of the perceived severity or lack of it. They need to be taken seriously. The whole of this document is built around a theology of communion, where God's plan for creation, the Father, Son and Holy Spirit, set to heal the wounds of sin and division. That's the theological underpinning of the document. And in fact, there's an appendix in the document that talks about the theology of communion. The first part, it's divided into 4 sections. The first part is to appreciate and understand that the church doesn't exist to serve the parishioners, but it exists so they can serve God. So it's a different mindset to people who might think that the parish exists down the road to serve them and their needs. It's not there for that. It's there for you to serve God. We're called to do what we can. There are often 2 extremes, I suppose, that come through in parish life particularly. First extreme is everyone should get a turn at everything, even if they aren't much good at it. And so everybody should be asked to be a reader, or everybody else should be a special minister, or everybody should be a collector, or everybody should be a welcomer, or whatever. The second extreme is only the best is good enough for God, so if you can't be great, get out of here. If you can't read beautifully, then we don't want you. So we've got to try and find some sort of balance in between. We take the middle road. The first section of the 4 sections is on the culture of safeguarding. And it talks about valuing Indigenous people. It talks about speaking out when actions, behaviours, languages or environments might cause harm, calling attention to those, embedding effective safeguarding in our policies, risk management practice at all levels, ensuring safeguarding resources are easily available and readily reviewable, and also meeting mandatory reporting requirements and record keeping requirements, which is also very important. Basically, it comes down to never alone. Never alone with children. Whenever we're working with children, there's always at least 2 adults. Never alone. And that's clergy and lay people, everyone across the board. Avoiding over-familiarity, inappropriate language or favouring or grooming. Being alert to the causes and signs of child abuse or neglect. Respecting physical and emotional boundaries. Prudence with necessary physical contact. I mean, physical contact is important as part of living our faith, living our sacraments. You can't do an anointing without touching people. But it's about respect and prudence in those. Accurate record keeping, care of private information so that it's not disseminated unfairly, prompt and fair response to complaints. Basically, in the Melbourne Archdiocese, we had a document called May Our Children Flourish. That has been replaced with this Code of Conduct, which is sort of the specific law for the Melbourne Diocese. And it has a whole list of things that are appropriate and things that aren't. Like, when's it appropriate to take photographs of children? When's it appropriate and how can those photographs be used? And what permissions are required? All that type of thing. How do we use social media? What can be done? What can't be done? What needs permission before it can be done, etc. So it talks about required and prohibited behaviour. The boundaries of physical contact, providing a safe environment, issues about photography, social media, and gifts. If you're going to give a gift to a child, then it has to be the same gift to all children. You can't discriminate, you can't favour, you can't groom, you can't, etc. The second section of the document is about positive relationships. This is really important because it's about acknowledging our own vulnerability, our limitations, and our power in a relationship. that adults have a power in the relationship that they may not recognise. It's about promoting autonomy of each individual, but also the voice of others, clarifying personal and professional relationships, understanding and maintaining physical, sexual, emotional and psychological boundaries, reporting boundary violations, and only acting within and not beyond our area of expertise. So that means if we're talking with someone and sharing with them or mentoring them, and it gets to the point where this becomes a counselling relationship, if we don't have counselling skills or qualifications, then we need to refer on to someone who does that. In other words, not tackling things that are beyond our ability, and accepting full responsibility for any perceived or real abuse of power. It's talking about in a relationship there are differences and difficulties. You can summarise this by saying, what would Jesus do? How would Jesus handle this? He wouldn't exploit the opportunity to make himself feel good or to impress others or whatever. He'd be looking for the interest and care of the person he's working with. He'd be courteous and humble, honour the dignity of each person, avoid sarcasm, presumption, harassment, bullying or embarrassment. How we relate to one another, and this includes relating to each other, whether it be the office bearers in a branch, how they deal with the members of the branch, how members deal and speak towards one another, that sort of thing. Care for the marginalised and the needy, respectful communication, respectful use of social media and personal support, and respecting pastoral, professional and personal boundaries, and accepting the limitations of our own competence. The third section of this document talks about stewardship for all. It's about how we use the resources ethically and sustainably. It's about being open and transparent with our financial and operational systems. It's about respecting confidential information. It's about seeking external, independent expertise, identifying and declaring potential conflicts of interest. So this is about the ethical use of resources, not utilising them for our own benefit or feathering our own nest or sorting things out to our own advantage or to improve our reputation or whatever, but rather using resources for the purposes of God's mission. It gives a number of examples in the document about what not to do and what to do to be able to do that. So it's about the just use of office, role or ministry, and about professional and competent service. It's about safe and just working conditions. So bullying in the workplace is not appropriate in any stretch of the imagination. And the same can be said within our branches, for example. Prudent judgment about gifts and benefits and what they might be perceived as by an independent onlooker. It's about serving God, not ourselves. The fourth and final section of the document is lifelong formation. Undertaking relevant education, training and development, including safeguarding professional standards, interculturality, having professional pastoral supervision. In other words, having our performance reviewed regularly. If we're in a ministry role, having someone else review and share with us and debrief us on those things. Engaging in spiritual direction so that it's about the growth of our personal spiritual life, not just performing actions or going through the paces. Attending to our own spiritual, physical, social, mental and emotional well-being, and seeking additional professional or personal support as we need it, and relating the codes of conduct to both personal and professional formation. So it's about being committed in faith, hope and love. So the document is asking us to continually strive to improve our performance and to look at how we're doing in what we're being called to do. It's about taking parish improvement measures, order improvement measures, affirming others in their development, praising people who've done well, assisting others who might be struggling, and also about talent scouting and succession planning. And this is all part of the code of conduct that we're called to. And finally, taking care of our own personal health, in body, mind and spirit. That means prayer. That means exercise. That means good eating. That means not overindulging, all that sort of thing. So, having said that, I can now presume that you know what's in this document. I presume and assume are two different things. Presume is, I suppose that something is the case on the basis of probability. You've heard what I've said, so I presume you're assuming is supposing without any proof. Oh. Okay, screen sharing is stopped.
Oh, because you're the window.
Okay. Now, as I said at the start, this should become second nature to us because we're doing it all the time. We're aware of it. Hopefully, like assembling a Bren gun, you never have to do it. I mean, I still can't work out why we don't teach 15-year-olds to assemble machine guns anymore. The world has changed, hasn't it? But that we know this is important. That we never have to use it would be wonderful. But to have this as a way of reminding people or calling them to account if our interaction and relations between one another is inappropriate or unfortunate or difficult or whatever, this is an opportunity for us to say, well, actually, we're called to be more than that. We're called to live respectfully with one another, to work respectfully for one another, not to further our own benefit, but so that we might serve God. Good. Thank you.
I'm going to ask Father to answer some questions if there are any. John.
John Watson from COVID. Brother, I also involved in different sporting aspects of my life and my professional life as well, where we have codes of conduct. In my sport, I have to touch the person to demonstrate the skill. So, would I be able to do that on this sort of code or not?
Most certainly. It's about your touching of, say, for example, demonstrating a skill in sport. That you do it in public, observed, you do it without any ulterior motive or intent, you're doing it specifically for the purpose of teaching that skill. Yeah, and that's fine. There's no problem with that. And that's why they talk about prudent use. So, teaching someone wrestling moves is fine in a group of people who are wrestlers, with everyone sitting around and everyone watching. Doing it in the back cupboard is not, okay, with just the two of you, is just not on, okay? Never alone. Always publicly and with other people around.
Also, you mentioned video pages and that sort of thing. We use that constantly now in our sport to improve the performance of the children in their matches. And the actual stadium we're in now actually has internal security with everything being filmed during the matches. So, again, it gets down to whether we use the code of conduct for that sort of purpose.
The code of conduct is basically saying all of our actions at all times need to be respectful and specific for purpose, not for an ulterior motive. And if it looks like someone's being favoured, or if it looks like to an outside observer that there's grooming taking place, then that gets reported.
Thanks, John. Anybody else have a question? Neil?
But just about attendance records per session that don't have to be kept.
It's an excellent point. It's important to keep good records. One of the things you'll notice now, if you're in a sacristy in a church anywhere in Melbourne, there's a register who celebrated what service, who was present. That's important, because that document then is evidence that can be used. If someone rings up the Vicar General, oh God, and says, I was touched up by this priest at this place on this day, and I have a record that says actually that priest that day was in another place, he was doing Mass here, the priest doing Mass there wasn't that priest, then I've got evidence to demonstrate that this is a claim without merit. Okay? Dominic?
Father Tony, just to bring the whole thing into perspective, what was the date of the last, or approximately, the date of the last abuse report that was handed to the Archdiocese?
To the Archdiocese?
Oh, the last report, the reported report.
I have no idea.
Would it be about 20 years ago or something?
No. We've had reports of inappropriate behaviour as recently as last year. Yeah. So it's something we need to
Does
be.
that relate to April though, or is that historic?
Excuse me, one at a time.
Yeah, sorry, just to say, is that historic or local? Yes, right.
It was a complaint about the behaviour of a priest inappropriately touching or making an altar server feel creepy. Okay? The complaint was investigated, and it turns out that the girl was being forced to be an altar server by her mother and didn't want to, and so she said, that priest makes me feel creepy. So it was investigated and went through and checked, and it was determined that the claim was without merit, that the behaviour of the priest was over-familiar, and that needed to be checked, but in fact there was no abuse in the circumstance. But that's why it needs to be documented, because if we didn't investigate that and realise it, then the priest's reputation is down the tube, and all sorts of rumours and worries and concerns. It's best to be transparent about these things and to report them and to investigate them.
Thanks, Father. If I call over here from Brian Scarl.
Father, I'm just wondering with that, the record's kept at a parish, but then, is that where it stays? Or
Yes, yeah.
So
It's kept at the parish and will be called on if there is a claim or an incident. The same as the incident report book. Every parish has an incident report book. If someone slips or trips or falls over at Mass, it needs to be written down, and what happened, and what date, what time, who was present. There's an incident report book.
But there's a big onus then on making darn sure that, you know, with succession of changes of priests or you know, personnel within parishes,
Correct.
that is actually made sure that it stays there.
Correct, yeah.
I think that's one of the biggest fears I see with that.
Okay.
Thanks, Brian. There are a couple over here. Peter,
Yeah, I don't want an answer, but just something.
can you...
Dogs ask
Peter,
for
excuse
cuddle.
me. I asked questions.
Yeah,
Do you have a question?
Yeah. Dogs ask for cuddle. Why not let children ask for cuddle? Now, 100 years ago it was okay, but the Crims took it over and muddied it up, and now we're not allowed to do it. So we've let the Crims infiltrate our behaviour.
I'll take that as a comment.
I'll just... there's somebody else up the back there. No?
Can we get an email copy of your presentation sent through to each branch at all?
Yep.
I'd like to be able to present it more next branch, but if we could get an email copy through, yeah, that'd be very good.
I can send it out as an email as a follow-up to...
Yeah, that's all, yeah. No.
Brother John?
Thank
Thanks, Brother Tony. It sounds like that code of conduct or the common mission, it's not just about preventing bad behaviour, it's also about building a really positive culture of excellence and...
Brother John, you picked it perfectly. That's exactly what it's about. The 4 sections of the document are not just about stopping bad behaviour, it's also about fostering, encouraging, improving good behaviour and working for mission, improving ourselves and those around us, and all of us growing. Yep.
My question is, which aspects of that, of building that positive culture, are you most maybe interested or excited about as it pertains to clergy and lay people, respectively?
The area I reckon we've got the most area to work on and improve, I think, is our interaction with others. How we connect and work, collaborate together. There are some who, on assuming a role or an office in the church, whether it be parish secretary or choir master or whatever, suddenly become autocratic and start telling people what to do and who gets to do this and who doesn't, when you can use that room, when you can't, and who gets to talk to the parish priest and who doesn't, all that stuff. And I think that's an area where we can really improve on how we relate and connect with one another. Laying down the law and throwing our weight around is not what this is encouraging. I think that area, how we speak kindly to one another, how we encourage and support growth and help without getting sarcastic or critical or backbiting or gossiping. That sort of area, I reckon there's a lot of room for improvement, and this document talks about encouraging that. Yeah, Father.
Father Kerin, there always seems, or maybe not in every parish, but in some parishes there seems to be 1 or 2 parishioners or a handful of parishioners that cause a lot of trouble. Whether it's just constantly complaining about the parish or, always being in the parish priest space or in the parish staff space or whatever. Does this deal with that, or is there something that can...
It does. It talks about inappropriate behaviour and makes suggestions about how you can improve that into a relationship connection.
But that's only if you're willing to accept that, if those parishioners are willing to accept that they're always disrupting and they're always being a nuisance. A lot of them don't see that.
What this document is asking us to do is to live justly, act humbly, and understand and appreciate our own limitations.
Yep.
Our big problem, I think, in the church is that there are many people who don't appreciate their limitations. They have the Catholic faith, they're right, everyone else is wrong, and they're going to tell people about it, and they're going to sort it all out.
Tell me about it.
Now, the difficulty I have is that I don't hear the criticisms of my behaviour. No one comes up to me and says, by the way, you were talking rubbish. No one says that to me, but they might say it to other people. I've got a group in the parish called my Vision Team, and they're my blindside group. They look and see and pick up stuff I miss. And they're really important to me for feedback. I could, when I meet with them, get all defensive and say, oh, why are you always picking on me? In fact, what they're doing is they're giving me constructive and helpful feedback that I don't get. So sometimes when people criticise each other, they could be our best friends. Because how they criticise, if it's constructive criticism, it's stuff we need to hear. And that's really valuable. But sometimes people aren't prepared to have their performance or their activity criticised in any regard. And I think that's a limitation. This document is encouraging us to be open, humbly, to criticism as a way of improving ourselves and the performance of the people we work and collaborate with.
Thanks, Father. I just want to make mention of the fact that State Council is very aware of what Father's spoken about, and you'll hear. All I was trying to say was you'll hear about it later. I want to now invite Dominic Amate.
Brother Chairman, before we proceed, should we make official mention of Father Kerin's new role, just so that it is official and all the members are aware of it?
Certainly. And my apologies for not mentioning it earlier when I introduced him. But you've all been aware that Father's been appointed to the position of Vicar General. Today is Father's last so-called public appearance before you all, before he changes his role and steps down as State Chaplain. And we're yet to be advised of who will replace him. But this is his last. All right, yeah, bit of advice. And yes, we had a State Council meeting last week, which was Father's last State Council, which he had attended, and we had the opportunity to thank him for his being the longest serving State Chaplain to the Knights in Victoria. So, and because Father has to leave early today, maybe we can just give him a last hurrah. Thank you, Father.